Before dinosaurs ever walked the Earth, it was ruled by creatures so alien they feel more like science fiction than science. But what exactly ruled before the thunder lizards? And how did their world pave the way for everything to come? Insects the size of hawks hunted in prehistoric skies. Millipedes longer than your couch slithered across forest floors. And the air, so thick with oxygen, even damp wood could burst into flames. Imagine walking through a forest where the air itself was a spark away from combustion. This was not a calm, prehistoric paradise. This was a world of extremes, oxygen-rich, fire-prone, and filled with evolutionary experiments that defy modern logic. Creatures didn't just survive here, they stretched the limits of what life could be. But none of it lasted. The rulers of this lost world disappeared in the blink of a geological eye, and their extinction set the stage for a new chapter, the rise of the dinosaurs. Today on Armchair Archaeology, we're unearthing the forgotten empire that came before the thunder lizards. Stay with us until the end, when we'll reveal a shocking truth about Earth's deadliest extinction and how it nearly erased the possibility of dinosaurs, mammals, and even us. Before we dive into the swamps and sky of Earth's forgotten past, don't forget to subscribe to Armchair Archaeology. It helps us keep digging up the ancient world for curious minds like yours, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Step into the Carboniferous period, about 350 million years ago, and you'd find yourself in a world that feels both familiar and deeply alien. Vast equatorial swamps covered much of the land, thick with lush forests of tree-sized ferns, horsetails, and club mosses. These plants, many over 30 meters tall, created an Earth that looked like a steamy green cathedral. But the atmosphere, that's where things get strange. Thanks to relentless photosynthesis, the air was saturated with oxygen, about 35%, nearly double what we breathe today. This supercharged environment acted like a biological amplifier. Insects and arthropods grew to monstrous proportions, unrestricted by the limitations of modern oxygen levels. Giant millipede-like creatures called Arthropleura stretched over 2 meters long, their armored bodies rustling through the undergrowth like a living tank. Overhead, Megarachne, a dragonfly relative with a wingspan larger than a hawk's, patrolled the skies. And on the forest floor, Pulmonoscorpius, a dog-sized scorpion, hunted with crushing pincers and a venomous sting. Makes you think twice about calling today's scorpions scary, doesn't it? The oxygen-rich atmosphere created more than oversized insects. It made the entire world dangerously volatile. With so much oxygen saturating the air, even damp, decaying wood could catch fire from a lightning strike. Forest fires swept across the prehistoric landscape, not in dry seasons, but through wet swamps, igniting jungles that should have been too soggy to burn. It was evolution on overdrive, where insects ruled, fire raged, and biology took wild chances. For a brief moment in Earth's history, the insects ruled, the air could burn, and nature wrote its most extravagant script. And yet, even this explosive chapter would pale in comparison to what came next. In the Carboniferous world, danger didn't come from dinosaurs or saber-toothed predators. It crept, crawled, and scuttled, often with more legs than you'd care to count. The ruling class of this era wasn't warm-blooded or even vertebrate. It was the arthropods. Near the tops of this terrifying food chain was Pulmonoscorpius kirktonensis, a land scorpion nearly 70 centimeters long. Unlike its modern relatives that lurk in deserts and shadows, Pulmonoscorpius was a formidable hunter in the humid jungles. Fossil evidence suggests it had not one but 2 pairs of eyes, one set to track movement and another to detect changes in light, perfect for stalking prey in the dim, steaming undergrowth. But even that predator looked tame, beside Arthropleura, a colossal millipede-like creature stretching over 2 meters. Its body was protected by thick, segmented armor, and it slithered across the forest floor like a prehistoric tank. While likely a vegetarian, its sheer size would have made most predators think twice. Imagine lifting a log and finding something longer than your dining table staring back at you. And in the murky shallows of ancient waterways lurked Jaekelopterus, a massive sea scorpion or eurypterid, with limbs made for scooping prey straight from the mud. These creatures, some over 2 meters in length, were sweep feeders, capturing invertebrates and soft-bodied animals hidden in the mud. What unites all of these arthropods isn't just their size, it's that they were the apex forces of their ecosystems. Before mammals and reptiles took over, invertebrates were the engineers of power, the ones who shaped how ecosystems functioned. And unlike the spiders and bugs we swat today, these giants were near the top of the food chain. And if you're fascinated by lost worlds and forgotten empires, you'll love our new ebook, Secrets of the Ancient World. From Atlantis to ancient engineering, it's your passport to history's most enduring mysteries. You'll find the link in the pinned comment. This was a time when armor, legs, and instincts ruled the earth, and when nature wasn't afraid to think big. High above the Carboniferous swamps, long before birds or bats flapped a wing, the skies were already claimed by insects, and none were more dominant than Megarachne, the undisputed ruler of the ancient air. Resembling a dragonfly, but far more formidable, Megarachne had a wingspan stretching over 70 centimeters, about the width of a modern eagle. But unlike today's dragonflies, it wasn't just a backyard acrobat. It was a true aerial predator, hunting insects, amphibians, and perhaps even small vertebrates. With enormous compound eyes, providing almost 360-degree vision and powerful mandibles ready to snatch prey mid-flight, Megarachne didn't just survive in the Carboniferous sky, it owned it. If you're picturing a dragonfly, scale it up to nightmare size and give it an attitude. Its reign was possible thanks to the planet's supercharged atmosphere. With oxygen levels nearly double those of today, flight became easier for creatures that would otherwise be grounded. The air itself was lighter, more buoyant, allowing even heavy-bodied insects to glide and maneuver with ease. And Megarachne wasn't alone. The skies also hosted other strange flyers like Paleodictyoptera, herbivorous insects with ornate wingspans up to 0.5 meter wide. Though they fed on plant sap, their appearance was spectacular. Vibrant wings with intricate patterns like living stained glass gliding above the treetops. Insects had no aerial competition, no birds, no pterosaurs, no bats. They were the undisputed rulers of the sky, and evolution took full advantage of that open niche. Today, we swat flies and admire dragonflies for their grace. But 300 million years ago, they were apex predators, as lethal in their domain as any lion or eagle is now. The Carboniferous sky wasn't a peaceful backdrop. It was a battleground, and insects were both hunters and kings. Not all giants of the prehistoric world lived on land. Some haunted the rivers and swamps, armored, clawed, and unlike anything alive today. For decades, paleontologists believed one of these creatures, Megarachne, was the fossil of a giant spider. And who could blame them? Its broad, segmented body and claw-tipped limbs seemed to scream arachnid. And just when you thought you'd met the world's worst spider, but the truth turned out to be even stranger. Megarachne wasn't a spider at all. It was a eurypterid, or sea scorpion. About 50 centimeters long, it lived in freshwater environments, using flat, paddle-like limbs to rake through sediment in search of prey. This method, known as sweep feeding, allowed it to scoop up worms, larvae, and small invertebrates hidden in the mud. It didn't weave webs. It sifted through ancient riverbeds like a living colander. And Megarachne was just the beginning. Far larger and more fearsome was Jaekelopterus renaniae, one of the largest arthropods ever discovered. This giant sea scorpion could reach over 5 meters in length. Its claws alone measured more than 45 centimeters, longer than a modern house cat. Equipped with powerful pincers and excellent eyesight, Jaekelopterus patrolled estuaries and shallow seas like a stealth submarine, ambushing prey with brutal efficiency. These weren't passive filter feeders. They were hunters in an era before jaws, teeth, or bone plates ruled the waters. A flick of sediment could mean death, and in these prehistoric shallows, everything had claws. It's easy to forget how dominant invertebrates once were. Today, we find creatures like these only in museum cases or nightmares. But 400 million years ago, they were real, and they were predators. The rivers of the past weren't places of peace. They were arenas of ambush, where the wrong ripple in the mud could mean your end. Which of these prehistoric predators surprised you the most? Drop your favorite in the comments. We love hearing what fascinates you most about Earth's untold past. As the Carboniferous drew to a close, a new kind of pioneer began testing the edges of the swamp. These weren't insects or armored invertebrates. They were vertebrates, creatures with backbones, tentatively stepping onto dry land. This shift would change life on Earth forever. The earliest of these land dwellers were amphibians like Eriops, a creature that looked like a fusion of crocodile and salamander. Nearly 2 meters long, it had a broad, tooth-lined skull and powerful limbs that allowed it to lunge from water to snatch passing prey. While still tied to wetlands for breeding, Eriops was among the first vertebrates to dominate both water and land. Another standout from this experimental age was Diplodocus, famous for its boomerang-shaped head. Scientists believe the strange skull may have acted as a hydrofoil, helping it glide through water, or as a defense against predators trying to swallow it. Either way, it looked like a science experiment drawn by a kid. And it worked. It looked like a cartoon weapon, but was a real evolutionary adaptation. But the game changer came in the form of the amniotic egg, a self-contained life support system that didn't need water to survive. This evolutionary leap allowed vertebrates to reproduce fully on land. Out of this came the first true reptiles, such as Hylonomus, a small, lizard-like animal that scurried among the underbrush, free from the aquatic cradle of its ancestors. It's hard to overstate what this meant. With land now open for good, vertebrates were finally free to stay and conquer. These early amphibians and reptiles weren't just oddities. They were the prototypes for every lizard, bird, and mammal to come. And in their footsteps, evolution would soon march forward, toward forms no one could have predicted. As Earth shifted into the Permian period, the swamps shrank, the air dried, and deserts expanded across a supercontinent known as Pangaea. The lush green world of the Carboniferous faded, and with it, the giant insects and damp forests. But nature filled the void with a new wave of land-dwelling rulers, many of them stranger than anything that came before. Enter the Permian, a world drying out, heating up, and evolving fast. Take Dimetrodon, for example, often mistaken for a dinosaur. This sail-backed creature was actually a synapsid, an ancient relative of mammals. Its dramatic spine sail may have helped regulate body temperature, absorbing sunlight like a biological solar panel. With serrated teeth and a 5-meter-long body, Dimetrodon was a top predator, more like a saber-toothed reptile than a Jurassic villain. Even more bizarre were the Gorgonopsids, ferocious dog-like creatures with elongated skulls and saber-like canines. They looked like a cross between a reptile and a tiger, and some grew as large as modern wolves or bears. Fossils suggest they were swift, warm-blooded hunters, possibly with traits closer to mammals than reptiles. And the oddities didn't stop there. Burrowing synapsids like Dimetrodon lived in underground tunnel systems to escape the brutal Permian heat. Meanwhile, herbivorous anomodonts roamed the land with beaked mouths and tusks built for stripping tough vegetation. This was evolution throwing everything at the wall: teeth, sails, tunnels, tusks, and seeing what stuck. This wasn't a world of dinosaurs. It was a world of proto-mammals, experimenting with body shapes, thermal control, and social behaviors that would echo into the future. Long before mammals, as we know them, emerged, the groundwork was already being laid in these dry, dangerous Permian landscapes. Want to dig deeper into the mysteries of ancient civilizations and their lost knowledge? Our ebook, Secrets of the Ancient World, explores forgotten cities, unexplained technologies, and more. Grab it from the pinned comment and take the adventure further. But even these resilient forms were about to face something no adaptation could prepare them for: a global event that would leave only the hardiest survivors. About 252 million years ago, life on Earth hit a wall. It wasn't just an extinction, it was a biological apocalypse, known as the Permian-Triassic extinction, or more ominously, the Great Dying. This event marked the single greatest loss of life our planet has ever seen. In the span of a few million years, a blink in geological time, over 90% of marine species and 70% of land vertebrates vanished. Coral reefs disintegrated, forests collapsed. Even the once mighty synapsids, who had ruled the land for millions of years, nearly disappeared. The culprits? A deadly combination. In what is now Siberia, enormous volcanic eruptions, called the Siberian Traps, unleashed over 3 million cubic kilometers of lava. Along with it came carbon dioxide, methane, and sulfur, creating a cocktail of climate chaos. Temperatures soared, oceans turned acidic, oxygen levels plummeted. Life didn't just struggle, it suffocated, boiled, and collapsed. Some regions became so inhospitable they may have experienced lethal heat waves and oxygen-depleted dead zones. And then came a possible cosmic 1-2 punch. Traces of extraterrestrial gases found in ancient rocks suggest an asteroid or comet may have joined the destruction, delivering a second blow just as life was struggling to recover. What's terrifying isn't just the scale of death, it's the duration of collapse. Recovery took millions of years, and nothing that returned looked quite the same. For millions of years, Earth remained unstable, biologically impoverished, and ecologically barren. Entire ecosystems had to be reinvented from scratch. The Great Dying didn't just close a chapter, it nearly ended the whole book. And yet a few unlikely survivors held on. Tiny reptiles, tenacious plants, and adaptive generalists that could tolerate extremes. From that wreckage, a new evolutionary path would emerge, but before dinosaurs could rise, life had to reboot, and the world would never be the same again. If you're enjoying the journey, consider hitting the super thanks button. It helps us keep producing quality content and uncovering history's greatest untold stories. In the wake of the Great Dying, Earth was eerily quiet. Once thriving ecosystems had been reduced to skeletal frameworks. The survivors, what few there were, faced a broken world of scorching temperatures, acidified oceans, and lifeless deserts. But survival, as history shows, rarely favors the biggest or strongest. It favors the adaptable. From this fractured biosphere emerged a new group of reptiles, archosaurs, meaning ruling lizards. Some would eventually evolve into crocodiles, Others, far less imposing at first, would become dinosaurs. The earliest dinosaurs weren't titans. They were small, nimble, and fast. Eoraptor, one of the oldest known species, stood just over half a meter tall, not exactly Jurassic Park material, but deadly in its own right. It darted between ferns, likely preying on insects and tiny vertebrates. Herrerasaurus, a bit larger and more advanced, reached about 6 meters and bore the beginnings of what would become the iconic dinosaur body plan. These early dinosaurs succeeded not because they dominated, but because they endured. Quick to hatch, quick to run, quick to adapt. In a world that was still healing, those traits weren't just useful, they were essential. One of the most remarkable Triassic fossils ever found is a tiny ancestor of both dinosaurs and pterosaurs discovered in Madagascar. Nicknamed the Bug Slayer, it stood just 10 centimeters tall, had long needle-like teeth for catching insects, and may have been covered in fuzz or proto-feathers, an early experiment in insulation. The Triassic wasn't the dinosaurs' playground, it was their proving ground. They weren't born kings. They earned the throne through survival, one footstep at a time, and slowly, cautiously, they began their march into dominance. But even as they rose, ancient shadows still lingered, and the echoes of the world before were far from silent. The ancient world before dinosaurs wasn't just erased, it was recycled. Its legacy lives on, not in fossils alone, but in creatures we see every day. Start with birds. The chirping outside your window, that's not just background noise, it's the echo of a prehistoric lineage that began in the Triassic. It's a voice from the Triassic, still singing. Birds evolved from small, feathered theropod dinosaurs, and their distant ancestors were among the survivors of the Great Dying. Traits like rapid growth, high metabolism, and insulation didn't begin with birds. They were forged in the fire of extinction. Then there are the crocodiles. Today, we think of them as slow, lurking ambush predators. But their ancestors were agile, land-based hunters. Some even walked on 2 legs. These ancient Crocs were part of the same Archosaur family tree as dinosaurs, and they thrived in the Triassic world as flexible, fast-evolving survivors. And us? Our story doesn't start with the dinosaurs. It stretches further back, to the synapsids of the Permian, creatures that had differentiated teeth, upright limbs, and possibly even fur. The building blocks of mammals, including humans, were already falling into place before the first dinosaur took a breath. Modern life isn't separate from this forgotten age. It's the latest chapter in a story that began hundreds of millions of years ago. Every feathered robin, basking crocodile, and mammalian heartbeat is a continuation of ancient experiments, of creatures who adapted, evolved, and persisted through global catastrophe. The next time you see a bird soar or a lizard bask in the sun, remember, you're looking at survivors of a world we've only just begun to understand. The past isn't buried, it's breathing all around us. Look back far enough, and life's story doesn't read like a march of progress. It feels more like a sequence of close calls. Earth has rebooted itself more than once, and each time, the outcome was anything but guaranteed. The Permian-Triassic extinction was the most brutal reset of them all. It didn't just disrupt ecosystems, it erased them. Entire food chains vanished. Niches were left unfilled. Complex, symbiotic relationships that had taken millions of years to develop were severed in a geological instant. The Earth teetered on the edge of lifelessness, and still, somehow, life clawed its way back. But what rose from that silence wasn't a continuation, it was a reinvention. Survivors evolved new strategies, faster metabolisms, harder shells, higher reproduction rates. Some reptiles began standing more upright. Others evolved insulating coverings. The survivors weren't the most powerful. They were the most flexible. They didn't inherit the world. They reimagined it. It's easy to forget just how fragile our story really is. Had things tilted slightly further, had temperatures risen a few degrees more, or the recovery stalled, Earth might have remained a lifeless rock, or, at best, a planet ruled by completely different life forms. And yet here we are. Today, we take life's resilience for granted. But every robin in a tree, every dog lying at your feet, every human heartbeat is the product of near impossible odds stacked across eons. We are here not just because of evolution, but because of extinction. Extinction didn't just clear the stage, it handed us the script. When we zoom out far enough, we realize life on Earth didn't just persist, it adapted, redefined itself, and transformed. And in the ashes of what was lost, the foundations of everything we know today were set. From jungle-thick swamps and burning skies to armored sea hunters and boomerang-headed amphibians, the world before the dinosaurs wasn't a warm-up act. It was an epic in its own right. For hundreds of millions of years, creatures we'd struggle to believe today ruled land, sky, and sea. They weren't primitive. They were the pinnacle of their time. But now, as promised, it's time for the fun fact that reshapes everything. The Permian-Triassic extinction was so severe that it didn't just reset ecosystems, it pushed Earth's biosphere to the edge of collapse. Some scientists believe it took up to 10 million years for ecosystems to fully recover. During that time, the planet's oceans were so hot and depleted of oxygen, they may have reached temperatures of 40 degrees, comparable to a modern hot tub. Entire oceans turned into slow-cooking, suffocating soup. It wasn't just a disaster. It was the single most consequential bottleneck in the history of life. Without it, there's no us, no mammals, no imagination to even tell this story. And had recovery failed, the age of dinosaurs and everything that followed might never have happened. The creatures that came before weren't failures. They were the foundation. Their rise, their reign, and their extinction shaped the path that led to every creature we know today, including us. What if we're living between acts in Earth's next big rewrite? And if you're still hungry for more, our ebook, Secrets of the Ancient World, is packed with the same armchair archaeology storytelling you love. Mysteries, technologies, and civilizations you've probably never heard of. It's all waiting in the pinned comment. Thank you for joining us on this extraordinary journey through Earth's forgotten pre-dinosaur past. If you found this exploration as fascinating as we did, help us keep these stories alive by liking the video and subscribing to Armchair Archaeology. It helps us share the wonders of ancient history with more curious minds. And don't forget to ring the bell so you never miss our next dig into time. What lost world should we uncover next? Drop your ideas in the comments. We're always listening. Until our next discovery, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the flame of curiosity burning bright.